All right, today's notes are the first two sections in our geometry book, lessons 1-1 and 1-2. Now, we're really not going to spend much time with 1-1. We're really going to focus on 1-2, but we are going to introduce things using 1-1. And so section 1-1 is this axiomatic system of geometry. And it really gets into defining the basics of how we're going to define vocabulary through the year. Now, you do not need to copy everything down from the slide. That is not a good note-taking practice to use, right? So just pick out the key details of each slide. So why am I showing you this particular slide? This slide is really so we understand what the term undefined terms means. There are three undefined terms in geometry: point, line, and plane. And it's going to be expected that you know that. Point, line, and plane are the three undefined terms of geometry. And so that's what you want to put down in your notes. If you weren't in the class and you don't already know, then notes are an expected part of the class. So please get out a notebook right now and start taking notes if you haven't done so already. Point, line, and plane are the three undefined terms, sometimes called the building blocks of geometry. Now, why it's this whole slide? Because we need to know what undefined terms are. We will define a point, a line, a plane. So why do we call them undefined terms? Because they are words usually readily understood. They're not formally explained by means of more basic words or concepts. They're the beginning. Geometry starts with these things, and we build up all these advanced definitions, postulates, and theorems. I won't use the word axioms very much. I'll say definitions, postulates, and theorems. Now, we like definitions and postulates because they're fact. We learn them. We just know it's true. We go on. Theorems we have to prove later on in geometry. Some of you will get sick of hearing the word prove. All right, but we're going to work through that. It's like a theory in science class. You know, it's something that you don't necessarily know, but it's never been proven wrong. Now, this is the slideshow from class, so we're going to skip that one. And I'm not going to spend much time on this one. I just basically explained that the three undefined terms here, this is why we're doing it: point, line, and plane. Going to need to know that. That's the focus of today's lesson. And again, those are called the building blocks of geometry. Now, this isn't the first time in math class you've had these words. You should know over here, this is a coordinate plane. It's an XY plane is how they would say it on the SAT test, but it's a coordinate plane or XY plane. It's where you would plot points, all right, to make graphs. A point, you just count over on the x-axis and up or down the y-axis, and you can plot your point from the ordered pair. And then y equals mx plus b hopefully is a thing you know. All right, if not, you'll review it at some point. But y equals mx plus b, you can use to draw a straight line. So let's talk about these words in geometry, and let's write some geometric definitions of these words. And so I'm going to try, again, you don't have to write down everything that's on a slide. I want to try to keep my definitions nice and short. So what is the definition of a point? This little symbol I use right here, that means is defined as. So a point is defined as. It's shorthand I picked up somewhere along the way when I was a student, way back when I was your age and we didn't have things like YouTube. All right, point is defined as a location. All right, that's a simple way. Geometry, simple notes here. You know, I have the definition of location. I meant to say on the previous slide, this is like a hint, hint, wink, wink, that there might be, just might be, an essay question asking you what are the undefined terms of geometry, or maybe it will ask what are the building blocks of geometry and can you define each. And so we want to keep everything as simple as we can. The building blocks being point, line, and plane. And our definition of point is location. Now, how do I draw a point? That's over here. It's just a dot with a capital letter beside it. How do I let somebody know that's what I'm talking about? Just with a capital letter. Meaning if I draw another dot over here and I give that one a name like Z, I could say I name all the points on that plane now, point A and point Z. I'm talking about 2 points, so I put the comma in there. I'm talking about point A and point Z. Next, we have line. So let's talk about the definition of a line. A line is defined as a straight path. Or you could say a straight arrangement of points. Either way, that would be good. I think straight path or straight arrangement of points simplifies it. The book's explanation is there. It gets a little wordy for me, so I'm going to go with straight path or straight arrangement of points. And so you see a picture, you probably already imagine when you know the picture what a line is, but it has arrows that goes on forever in both directions. If it doesn't have arrows, it's not a line. All right. We name the line using 2 points. It's going to be important that we know that. Anytime I want to name a line, I can't use 1 point. I need 2. And so it doesn't matter if it's PQ or QP. The order you use doesn't matter. All right. But you have to add this notation above it. It's a little line with arrows. And so I would read that. I would read this right here as line PQ. Or I read this one over here that I'm highlighting as line QP. Now, why is that M there? There's no dot there. That M isn't a point. It's a little like cursive or italic M. Why is that there? If you wanted to write out the word line and not use the letters PQ, you could call it line M. It's saying, hey, you can just name this thing M. They do that sometimes, especially if it's got like a homework problem with a whole bunch of lines to kind of save them or save you some time. But most of the time we'll use 2 letters with a little line symbol above it. It's called the notation for a line. The last one is plain. All right. Plain notation is not as good on, but let's talk about the definitions first here. So a plain. And the book is right here. I'm just going to shorten their answer. The book says flat surface. I call it a flat surface. We are in complete agreement. So a plane is a flat surface. A plane is defined as a flat surface. Okay. And you have a picture of a plane here, and you name a plane. Now, there's no notation, so I have to write the word plane. Plane, I name a plane using 3 letters. So plane, B, C, D. Or I can name that same plane. I don't have to name it more than one way, but I could. C, B, D. Or I can name it D, B, C. Or, I mean, there's lots of different variations. Now, what about that K in the corner? There's no dot by that K in the corner. All right. And it's like, again, it's like italics down there. And so when they put an italics letter in the corner, they're saying, hey, you can just name that whole plane that way. So we can just name it plane K. And so 3 letters is the most common. There is a shortcut way that you'll use sometimes. All right. Now let's talk about the 3 letters, because 3 letters is most common. You'll use it most of the time. But let's add a point right there, and let's call that point E. All right. So I have point E. Oh, let me make a point E again. So that's point E. So I can name this now plane bed, B-E-D. That would work. I can't name it plane B-E-C. Why not? Because it looks like B-E-C here could be on a line. And so I want to use 3 letters. Any 3 letters works as long as those 3 letters do not look like they are on one line. So I did this one in class earlier, and I didn't erase the answers, so the answers are already here, but I'll talk you through it. Example 1, name each of the following. So you only have to name it once. I named it a whole bunch of times here. You only have to name it once on the homework. A line containing point Q. Well, let's look at the picture. Point Q is right here on this line. So how do I name that line? Well, I can name it line C. Or if you want to put the little C with the line symbol above it, I will accept that. I remember I said it's probably most of the time you're going to do is 2 letters. And so it doesn't matter to me if you said QR or RQ, or you could say QT or TQ, or you could say TR or RT. All right. But anytime, just use 2 letters and make sure you put the line symbol above it. So it's line QR or line QT or line TR. Now we got to name a plane containing points S and T. So S and T are on this big blue plane here. All right. One way you can name it was with the letter in the corner, plane A. I said otherwise you can use 3 letters. STR would work. SRQ would work. All right. Hopefully you know why TRQ would not work, because we want to avoid them being on the same line. And I cannot use V. And this is what's hard conceptually for some kids to handle in geometry class. Even though this is a 2D picture here, you got to picture this as like a piece of paper, and this line is not on it, but it's going up through it. Think of like if you stuck your pencil through a piece of paper. This is your pencil sticking through the paper. This is just the paper. So V is like above it where this B is. Remember, that's not a point, but where it is would be below, all right, the piece of paper. And so you got to kind of visualize it in 3D, even though it's a 2D picture. Let's talk through this example. This is a you try. I'd usually say pause it and try. And if you wouldn't pause it and take your guesses, there's more than one right answer. Feel free to pause, take your guess, figure out whether you're right or wrong. But let's kind of try to talk through it together here since this is new. So plane CBA, is that possibly a right answer? Hopefully you're shouting at the screen, no. C and A are not even on the plane. A is above it, C is below it. So if it has an A or if it has a C, it can't be right. So it can't be those two because C is not on the plane. What about plane FBE? FBE are all on the plane. So yeah, winner, winner, chicken dinner there. I can handle that being okay answer. What about DBE? DBE. Well, they're all on the plane, so why not? Well, here's the problem. They're all on the plane, so it looks like it would work. But am I talking about line DBE or plane DBE? So I can't use it if they're all on the same line. What about plane XBF? This is a tricky one. Plane XBF. X down here isn't a point. X is the like italics name in the corner, so I can't name it as a point. I can, however, name it just as plane X. So those are the two right answers. Hopefully you sorted that if you paused the video. If not, hopefully you're starting to grasp that concept now. Another you try. This one, pause the video. Give it a try. Take a few seconds to see if you can name a line containing point E. All right, hopefully you took a guess. There's lots of answers. I would say BE, or you might have said EB. All right, you could have said DE, or you might have said ED, or you could have just said DB or BD. So any of those 6 things I just said would work. All right. If you write it out, though, make sure you have to have this symbol above it. It has not just be. Notice also I'm talking about one line, so no comma between the points. All right. This is BE as in one line, line BE. So no comma between the points. Two of the last 4 things you have to write down in your notes today from a definition standpoint are collinear and coplanar. And so collinear, as you write this into your notes, collinear means on the same line. Again, collinear means on the same line. Co means they share it. Linear means line. So collinear, on the same line. Coplanar then means on the same plane. So collinear on the same line, coplanar on the same plane. So collinear line, coplanar plane, on the same line, on the same plane. The book will talk about non-collinear and non-coplanar here in this section too, but that's not as important from a long-term vocabulary standpoint, and hopefully it's obvious to you that non here means not. So if it's non-collinear, it's just not collinear. If it's non-coplanar, it's just not coplanar. Looking at the pictures, A, B, and C are obviously all collinear. So A, B, C are collinear. They're all on the same line. Looking at this picture, P, Q, and R are all on the same plane, and so they are coplanar. Over here, I could say A, B, D are coplanar. They're not all on the same line. They're not collinear, but they are on the same plane. They're on this surface here, so A, B, D are coplanar. The next example is just talking about real life examples. And since we're not in class, I can't have you point out a whole bunch in the classroom. But they're saying, hey, this quarter, this looks like a single dot in this whole table. So that quarter is a model of a plane, of a point rather. So that quarter is a model of a point. And they're saying, hey, this whole notebook cover here, that would be a real life example of a plane. Or the edges of the notebook, any edge of the notebook could be an example of a line. And they're kind of saying this pencil or pen here is a line. They also gave points on it, so those points are collinear. I also think they intentionally included the headphones. The headphones here, they ask you what those are. Some of you would be inclined to say it's a line. But if you pulled them straight, if you pulled it tight, it would be a line. But in geometry, a line has to be straight. So when it has curves or squiggles to it, we don't call that a line in geometry class. One of the things you're going to be asked to do on the homework today is to draw things out. And so in class here, I forgot to erase this already, but it's here. So let's talk about what I drew. And I'll actually try to draw another one so you see that it's not as easy as I made it look by having it here already. All right. But let's draw AB, line AB, so it intersects plane D at point C. Wow, that's a mouthful. Let's break it down. Line intersects a plane at a point. I know from experience that anytime I'm drawing, it's easiest to start with my plane. And so I start with my plane. I want to have a line that goes through it. It hits it. I can't see it because it's behind it. And then it comes out the other side and keeps going. All right. If I put the dashed lines in like I did over here, that kind of shows that it's hidden behind it. All right. I'm going to leave them out over here. And so hopefully you kind of get that concept here that the line goes, hits this at this point and keeps going. Now that line is line A, B. This point that it hits at is point C, and the plane itself is D. The second example, or second part of this example, says line XY crossing through parallel planes. Parallel planes, planes that do not touch each other. And so if I think of two pieces of paper floating, one floating in the air above the other, all right, like that. And I have my line that starts above it, goes down, hits it right at a point, comes out the other side, hits the other one, comes out the other side, keeps going. And that is got X and Y on it. And so that line that keeps going through those two planes is line XY. All right. Again, I can use these little dashes to let you know that it's hidden behind it. And that lets you know it's going through it and it's not on it as well. All right. Last kind of things you have to write down in your notes. And these are hopefully no-duh-ish. All right. If you have two lines, all right, think about two roads intersecting. All right. When they intersect at one like corner, one point. So anytime you have two lines intersecting, all right, a line and a line, their intersection is a point. And so even though there's no points labeled, if I said name a point in the picture, you're like, oh, there isn't one. There is one right there. And you just give a letter. That's point A. The harder one to talk about for me to draw is two planes intersecting. Think of a wall. The wall comes down. All right. The wall comes down, hits the floor. When the wall hits the floor, if I was to take a marker and draw the whole intersection where the wall hits the floor, I would be drawing a line. So when two planes intersect, the intersection is a line. And so let's just look at this last example. All right. Name four collinear points. There's only one place in this picture. Look at this picture. Where do you see 4 points on the same line? A, B, C are all on the same line, but that's only 3 points. C, G, F, E, D are all like in the same thing. They're all in the same like pentagon over here, but that's not a line. It's not straight. 4 points on the one line, and hopefully you've noticed by now there's only the one line with 4 points on it. It's got H, I, and then C, and then F. Two intersecting planes, very tricky. Hopefully everybody sees plane. I'll call it plane P. That's the big blue plane down here. Now, do you even see another plane? And I bet you do. You just don't realize it. All right. That intersects plane. I bet you guys all noticed there was this pyramid here, and every face of the pyramid is a plane. So this front face hits this plane down here, right at that line DE. That's where it's hitting that plane. And so this plane, DAE or DEA, DEA, all right, intersects the plane P at the line DE, or line segment DE. Tricky one again here, line JI is this line that goes up through it, and the dash, 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 so it means it's going straight up through it. And line DC, even if I was to extend that line is never going to touch this line that's going up and down. And so this is a trick question. I don't know if you have one like that in the homework, but I wanted you to think about. That's called a skew line, actually. We'll come to that vocabulary word skew later. Not today, but later. All right. And so you just have to really work. Show me you start to understand the difference between a point, a line, and a plane. All right. The homework assignment's a little bit longer than I usually give, but it's because, a lot of them are short answers. A lot of it's good practice. You have to understand spatial recognition. You have to start to get the understanding of geometry. And so on page 15 and 16, doing 1 through 10 all, and 21 through 29 odd.